Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Biscuit for the Biscuit. Chris Munch, Adam Bush here.
Gary Hornstein
behind the camera. This is part 2. If you have not seen part 1, go back and listen to that, or this will be nonsense.
Or not making sense.
The entire episode.
It's just very confusing.
What is this?
Yes.
So we're just to protect you from that. This is part 2. We're talking about marriage and career balance,
family
stuff,
what it looks like right now in our careers and how they can get, lopsided.
Setting up guardrails. This is a more serious, tone than what we've done. These 2 episodes.
Yeah, these 2 episodes are more serious. And if you listen to the last one, I was talking about a situation that happened to me in my traveling endeavors. And so, And so a little bit of a longer conversation, so we broke it up
into 2. And as these things work, part 2 comes after part 1.
Yeah, that's how we do it.
That's how we do. Maybe that's a little different.
Yeah,
but
we're
kind of pioneering,
we're blazing a trail.
But anyway, so enjoy part 2. Have you talked to Di or even to God or yourself about just like forgiving that lady? Has that ever like come to the forefront of like she certainly overstepped her bounds and violated a part of you in the sense, like you said, that she had no regard for your marriage or your life, and that's really sad. And you go, what was going on in her life that she would get to a place where I mean, she's probably doing this with tons of, or probably her best clients are married, or whatever.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm just curious if you've thought about that.
I don't know if I should be embarrassed by this, but it hasn't even crossed my mind.
Yeah,
honestly.
Sure.
Yeah. But I think you're right.
Yeah. I think that's where the freedom comes. Like these things that happen to us that it sucks. It's terrible. It sucks.
Yeah.
And how does this not destroy the like, are you never going to be able to enjoy a massage again? Or like, even when you're like, with Di or whatever, doing all the right things. Like, I don't want that for you. Like, how do you get free from this thing where my mind goes is like getting to the place of acknowledging the wrong that she did to you. And then being like, you were wrong, but I'm letting it go.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
And I don't even think I've started. And maybe this is, I've been talking to you and Gary for a while about like, I would like to share this story. I've actually talked about this a little bit on stage.
Oh, you have?
I have, yeah. Just maybe, stand-up comedy is a bit of therapy.
Yeah, like sure, working stuff out.
And I'm a verbal processor, so it is helpful. And but I've been talking to you guys for a while. Like, I think I would like to share this story.
It's not an easy thing to talk about. Like, it's not super pleasant to listen to in the sense. Right? Like this isn't entertainment.
Yeah.
So this isn't super entertainment, but it could hopefully be helpful to people, or, to at least acknowledge that you don't hear guys talk about things like this.
No, that's true. Yeah. And honestly, there would probably be a lot of guys who'd be like, what's the big deal?
Yeah, sure.
Sounds cool to me.
Yeah.
But that's not the world or convictions I'm living with.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I think probably, maybe what you're saying is even just like incredibly appropriate timing in that we've talked about it a little bit, but we haven't probably talked about it to this degree.
Yeah.
But like for you to say, have you forgiven that woman? No, I haven't.
Yeah.
I'm pretty mad at her.
Yeah.
I disputed the charges immediately.
Oh, yeah.
And
on your credit card.
Yeah. And like put on there what happened.
Yeah.
And got my money back.
Yeah.
And have been like contemplating leaving a review with my name on it.
Yeah.
Of what happened. And I kind of go back and forth on whether or not I think that's a wise idea. But I definitely haven't forgiven the lady.
Yeah.
And, I mean, whatever, if you're listening to this, whatever your view is on faith or whatever, my view is that every person is broken and all in need of saving, and we're all capable of trash decisions, myself included.
Well, I think from this lady's perspective, she probably doesn't want to be in that situation
Oh, I think
herself.
Right. Yeah.
That what's led up
Totally.
to that of her going, this is how how she supports her family or herself, that she'll probably look back and go, I wish I got out of that sooner, or wish that wasn't the path I went down, because all the things she's been a part of destroying is probably pretty painful for her to even consider.
Yeah. No, that's true.
Your story also makes me more compassionate to females that who have been, approached in that way. Like it's weird that it is this way, I guess, but it seems like that. I mean, it's just more common. You hear, ladies getting accosted or whatever, and it's just like, well, whatever, that happens, or it's like it's kind of opened my eyes more to like, that sucks. Not that it wasn't a big deal, I just mean like, I don't know, it gives me a little fresher eyes, I think, to like how traumatic that kind of thing can be.
Yes.
Where the world would almost say, oh, that's a compliment. Like some dude's like,
catcalling
you, whatever. It's like, what's the big deal? It's a compliment. And it's like,
And I don't want to pretend like, when Di and I were talking about this, she was just reminding me of the high percentage of women who have been assaulted sexually.
Right. Yeah.
And I do not want to pretend like I'm falling within the same category.
Sure, exactly.
But it is an injustice. And there's something I learned about myself in that moment was I did find myself kind of freezing.
Yeah.
And almost I feel like I'm, I know it's such a weird thing to say because I'm a guy, but like it kind of took all of the courage and energy in me to say, no, thank you. Maybe out of fear. Am I getting this wrong? Am I not understanding what's happening here or whatever? And I'm thankful I was able to do that. And so whatever that means to people, I really don't want other people to feel like I'm asking you to feel sorry for me or whatever, or that I find myself sort of in the same lane as those other situations. But it is something that I felt strongly enough to talk about, to say performing, comedy, acting, entertainment is not something that promotes relationship and marriage and the sanctity of marriage, which I believe in. And I want to do everything I can to avoid those pitfalls and put myself in the safest situation I can. Yeah. And so I don't really have a call to action for you here, but that's sort of my story. So anyway,
I'm proud of you for sharing your story and
thanks.
And talking about this kind of stuff. It's like I said, you don't hear guys talk about this very much. It feels a little bit like, I don't know, I don't know why, but it I don't even know what I'm trying to say.
I will say this. I think that a mental change that I have come to grips with since then is I am okay with creating an embarrassing situation for that person or myself if I was wrong. Now, I'm not going to find myself in another situation where I'm getting a massage and someone propositions me and I'm not sure or whatever. That's not going to happen again. But whatever the situation would be, one of my fears was, I think,
that you misunderstood.
That I misunderstood what's happening and that I responded
simply just
inappropriately and then I embarrassed everyone. I do not care about finding myself responding in a way that I could be wrong. I'm fine.
I think she just wanted you to put your pants back on.
Exactly.
That's all she was saying.
But do you know what I'm saying?
I think I do.
Well, I'm just saying if that was to happen again, even if I misunderstood,
Right.
I'm okay
You'd
with
rather
saying,
err on the
"Hey,
side of embarrassment
Yes.
than err on the side of
I'm fine with that.
inactivity and then leading to something worse.
Exactly.
Well, what do you think about the fact that not only, I mean, I've had that happen to me when I was 20 and I wasn't traveling or, I was just a kid and me and a buddy went together.
Right.
And that same thing happened and it was a shameful experience. But to be an adult and to be tired and working hard and what about the margin in your life to be able to at what point might that have gone the other way of you being so worn out from traveling and all that? How do you avoid putting yourself in that position now that I could just, go to one of these places and there's a strong chance that I deserve this?
Well, I think, I don't know how to answer your question completely, but I do know this. Our good friend Stephen Posey says, don't walk into temptation. Don't put yourself into, it's always a trap. And so making a hard decision to even if that massage place looked reputable, I'm on my own, I'm by myself.
Right. Yeah.
No,
not worth it.
That's a no.
Yeah.
Right? It's kind of like, don't, especially when you're a single guy, don't have a computer that can get on the internet in your bedroom. When you're growing up or whatever, because it's just a temptation to look at porn or whatever. And we don't want that to be a part of our lives, that sort of thing. I think there are practical things. And then we talk about this all the time, but I think having this, and you guys chime in, but I think having this community of honesty and vulnerability with the three of us and being able to say, and opening it up to you guys being able to say, hey, we're noticing this about you. You are running yourself ragged. Yeah. We see you regularly hungry, angry, lonely, and tired. And you're going to, this is a giant red flag, and you need to get out of this situation.
I think it's so important to have friends and people in our lives that we can be vulnerable with and open about what's really going on in our lives. And I think that's a huge, if you say, okay, we're going to enter this world of entertainment or traveling or interacting with people that don't have the same values that we have. Okay, that's fine. But how do we still put our marriages and our families first in those kinds of situations? I think a huge part of that is being open and honest about the things that are a temptation for us, the things that, that even shameful things that have happened, like what you're describing, where it's just we got to, talking about this thing is how you get past it and get over it. Yeah. And so just having a support system to work through those kinds of things, I think, is super important, and keeping each other accountable. We're not going to put ourselves in dumb situations. Yes. And guarding ourselves and each other from situations like that in the future.
What do you say, Gary? How do you answer the question that you just asked?
How do you avoid being,
I think you were saying
in a week,
go ahead.
Avoid putting yourself susceptible to do that. I think it's defining what actual success is, because it's the reason we work so hard, because we want what we think is success. We want to look good. We want to have money. We work hard so we can have all the things that are success, or that culturally is a success, at the sacrifice of our families. So I don't think it just comes down to a sexual sin of going, I'm working hard. That some guys would be like, no, I'm not even interested in that. That wouldn't tempt them at all, but not, I loved what Whit had brought this up at church. I guess C.S. Lewis said, and maybe you guys can correct this, if you want to love be passionate about your wife, pretend you're passionate about your wife.
Wait, what did you say? If you want to be passionate about your wife, pretend that you're passionate.
Yeah, if you're not passionately in love with your wife, pretend to be passionately in love with your wife.
I think he said, maybe I'm wrong, but I think it was just, if you want to love your wife, love your wife.
Yeah.
Like, and basically the act of loving your wife, the act of serving your wife, the act of
causes you to
actually, those feelings start to recycle through.
Yeah.
And then you find yourself really feeling it, even when you don't feel it.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
I would, were you done, Gary?
Well, I just think the general idea, cause I don't like the amount that you travel.
Yeah.
It bothers me that I go there. Where do you don't get more successful at this and travel less.
Yeah.
Right. So the more successful you get, the more you travel. How do you still have a relationship with your wife and with your daughter?
Yeah.
And your friends when you're not around them. Mm-hmm. And there's little accountability and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so what kind of sacrifices do you have to make? Like, I had to stop before, like 2015. I really have not worked more than 40 hours a week since 2015. Like very rarely.
But previous to that, it was like, yes, I will sleep under my desk.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's intentional.
For years.
Yeah. For a long time. Because you love what you do and you're good at it and all the other stuff that goes along with it. It's culturally, we get praised for that stuff.
Yeah.
But behind the scenes, nobody cares about that you're, ruining your marriage and that kind of stuff.
Yes.
So what sacrifices do you want to make to prioritize your marriage and your family? Because there's going to be, I guess maybe there's not sacrifices when you are going,
Well, I would say that it is, I think, pace. Like I think you could probably grow faster than you're growing right now, or
you mean professionally?
Professionally, I'm saying. Yeah. And maybe you are going too fast. I don't know, but like the sacrifice, I think, is that ultimately you're putting the timeline in God's hands, or maybe a better way to say it is you're putting the timeline in a way that isn't sacrificing your family. Because I think you can. I think the way to be more successful maybe won't be traveling less, but maybe the way you travel. Mm-hmm. Like with your if you're able, like if you're on a certain level, you're able to kind of call the shots of how you're going to travel and how that's going to look.
Right.
And so I agree with you what you're saying, Gary. It's like, yeah, you don't really travel less if you get way more successful. But I don't know, maybe I'm trying to say you can have your cake and eat it too. But I think when you walk in the pace that is, what am I trying to say? I guess what I've seen at different times is people so enamored with the worldly success that they're just, I don't care what I have to do.
Oh yeah.
I will grind. I will perform every night. I will be here and here and here and here. And I will fill my schedule to the brim because I've got to get to X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
Like I don't see that as what you're doing. So I think maybe that's where the sacrifice is like, you could get there in 5 years if you just really killed it.
Sure.
And your family probably wouldn't be happy about that, but you'd be there.
Or maybe not there. Maybe my family wouldn't.
Or maybe your family wouldn't even be there at all.
Yeah.
So what if it takes 10 years?
Yeah. Exactly.
Where everybody else out there is grinding it out and they can get there in 5. It's going to take you 10.
I agree.
That to me is maybe where the sacrifice is. That's what I think about it anyways.
It's, this is a real season of looking at that for me.
Yeah.
For 2 reasons. Gary said on Monday to me, Adam, I think maybe you're traveling too much. Between so the show that I work on, we make it out in Richmond, Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
So that takes me out there a lot. And then when I do out of town shows, obviously it takes me out. And so that's the first time in a while that Gary said that to me.
Yeah.
And then last night, Diana said, hey, I am cool with what's going on professionally with you right now between the show and the comedy. However, I would like it if when you had shows at night,
Mm-hmm.
if they were in town or regional, that you were with us until, the afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
So that your 8-hour day of work,
Mm-hmm.
if you're getting home at 10, it started at 4.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay. And it's not the first time she's ever mentioned it. It's just the first time in a while.
Yeah.
That's something. And I am first very appreciative of how much Di is for me and how she has always supported, when I made my first television show or with the new one or with comedy, she's always been like, I like that you're using your gifts.
Yeah. Right. Sure.
But I also appreciate the fact that she's willing to stand up and say, here's something that we're feeling.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And so just this week, and this is maybe the first time that I verbalized it on this podcast with everybody to listen to, I've been like, oh yeah, okay, we got to make some changes because I don't want to be a comedian and lose my family.
Totally.
I don't care about that. I do believe that this is an open door that God has given me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel like I'm trying to push something open that I'm not good at,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not, is not worth
No.
Di, Luna, and Ira by any means.
No.
And so, yeah. So maybe even what happened in Arkansas is just kind of a red light or a yellow light or a wake up call to say like, whoa, hey, got something going on here.
Yeah. Let's reevaluate.
Yeah, those opportunities like that are not going to stop.
You're right.
Yeah.
No, that's
Yeah.
a good point.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, those aren't only at shady massage parlors.
No, you're exactly
They're
right.
everywhere.
You're exactly right.
Honestly, that's probably the easiest thing to avoid.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about just sometimes when there's, females on TikTok or whatever
Someone
that
drops
just
into
like,
your DM.
Yeah. And just for anybody who's thinking about sending me something in the DMs or whatever,
don't do it.
My wife reads those.
Yeah.
It's going to be tough to get past Lisa.
She's a gatekeeper.
No. Yeah. So that's all.
Yeah. And I know it's a small thing, but I mentioned Dustin Nickerson earlier. He has this funny thing that he has online where when he always does meet and greets afterwards.
Yeah.
And, take a picture with people.
Sure.
He always does what he calls the hover hand.
Yeah.
And
that's
so
good.
when you see a picture that he reposts of someone having taken a picture with him, he always mentions hover hand undefeated.
That's good.
And I know a lot of people would say, okay,
Right.
putting your hand on someone's shoulder
Right.
in a group picture in
Right.
public.
What's the big deal?
What's the big deal? It's
Totally.
It's a guardrail, man.
Yeah, exactly.
And, yeah.
That's it. It's a guardrail.
Yeah. That's what we're talking about is having guardrails. And I think you've got a bunch of them there. Some decisions you're making, some decisions we're making on where we're not going to go.
Yeah.
Whether it be on the internet or publicly. And then open communication with our spouses and with each other.
Yeah.
And I think, when I was younger, I think opportunity, and I do like opportunity, but it was even more, I had a lot of fear of missing out when I was younger,
Mm-hmm.
to where if I was a comedian when I was younger and somebody said, you can't travel as much doing this.
Yeah.
I would be like, what?
Whatever.
Whatever.
Yeah.
And I would really be afraid of missing out. I don't feel that conviction anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or I don't feel like that anymore.
Yeah.
I feel like I want to be a good husband and a good wife, a good father,
Yeah.
and
That
a
was the
good
lesbian
friend.
side of you coming out.
Right.
Yeah.
And I do have a unique job, but I believe that I can have a healthy family and still do things that I feel like I'm supposed to do.
Yeah. 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 I feel more like in a rush than maybe I have in the past of just we're trying to buy another house, and like
Sure.
there's these things that like are just out of my reach
Yeah.
of like, oh, if we could make this much money or whatever. And so I have even lately been feeling more of like this like rush or this hurry of like, let's make this thing
Yeah.
go faster. And I have to, I don't know, I just have to remind myself that we're going to get where like, it's
You're
not
gonna get where you need.
one thing I think about a lot of is there's a story, I hope I don't butcher it, but Moses is on, I think he's on Mount Sinai. I think it's where God's like saying the promised land. I don't know. He says something about like, I don't want to go there if you're not there.
Yeah.
And like, that's what I try to think about with a
Yeah.
career of
Yeah.
like, yeah, it's pretty cool to like have followers on social media and that's cool, but I don't want to be a part of this if the God isn't with me.
I
Like
agree.
if this isn't where he's sending me, then I don't want this.
Yeah.
And so it's, I don't know, for me, it's that constant tension of just like, God, where are you in this? Is this right? Am I doing this right? Is this
Yeah.
where you want me to be?
Yeah.
Especially with what I'm doing is so silly. It's so,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just kind of ridiculous, but you know, it's bringing people joy and people are whatever, but say that to say, what does it profit a man to gain the whole world
Exactly.
if he loses his soul?
Yeah.
It's like, I'm going to be miserable.
Yep.
There's a lot of people with a crap ton of money and successful alone in a mansion somewhere
Yeah.
and don't have any real friends,
Right.
don't have a family, don't have
relationships with their children.
don't have relations with their children.
Yeah.
But everybody on the interwebs knows who they are.
Mm-hmm.
Big freaking deal.
Big freaking deal.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
want that.
I'm not looking to gain everybody and lose Luna.
Yeah,
Die and Ira. I don't.
totally.
I'm not into it.
Not a fair trade.
No.
Not a fair trade.
Not a fair trade.
But it's little tiny steps. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think those people, maybe they did. Maybe they made conscientious decisions of just like, screw my family. This is what I'm going for. But it is a powerful vacuum that sucks you that direction.
Yeah.
And it's like you start to make it on a certain level. Well, it's just like, well, I just got to do this and I can make it to that level. Well, it's just a little tweak. And then you find yourself not wanting to lose all that you've gained. And I don't know. So
There you go.
I think having these conversations and having friends be able to weigh in and say what they see,
Yeah.
to keep you from going where you don't want to go. I love what our Pastor Witt, had said in church about how our deepest desires are not often our strongest desires. And we get distracted by things like money or whatever, or fame, or just our phone.
Mm-hmm.
Like that becomes a strong desire. But like what our deepest desire is more about being loved and you know, in the Christian faith, we would say, you know, having an intimate relationship with Jesus, with God, having this sense of identity and love and acceptance from him is like our deepest desire, but we get distracted and sometimes like money and power and fame become our strongest desires.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's important to make that distinction of just because this might be a strong desire, it might be leading me into a place that I don't want to be.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. One resource I think I've been listening to this podcast called The Intentional Family. It's with Jeff Bethke and John Tyson, but they talk a lot about how to create a strong unit, like a strong family, and what to prioritize and that kind of stuff. It's been pretty helpful. That I think definitely pertains to this conversation.
Yeah. And then The Elimination of Hurry by John Mark Comer.
Mm-hmm.
That's a staple.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. It came out a few years ago. All right.
Wow. That was a doozy.
That was a doozy. Yep. Like and subscribe.
Guys, help us blow this thing up.
Yeah.
Help us really grow and
Hey,
achieve our dreams.
We will say if this has helped you at all, then, let us know. riskitpod@gmail.com, or you can follow me at Hey Adam Bush on social media. Chris is at Chris Much Comedy. You can follow him on Instagram and TikTok. And we're hopefully this kind of like left turn on our podcast from the kind of funny stuff that we usually do, hopefully is helpful and thought provoking. And
if it saves one marriage,
if it saves, listen, if we can save just 2 marriages, then yeah. All right. Well, we love you, and we'll see you next time.
bye.